All right, so this is 129S. But, by the way, tomorrow is the job fair. So if you're looking for a job, I highly recommend tuning in 5 to 7 tomorrow. And my Thursday class, I'm going to start an hour late to make time so people can attend this if they want to. Even if you are not looking for a job right now, you might want to attend this to hear about the jobs and what the requirements are and get some guidance as to what skills are in demand. It's often been a very good event in the past. And, I'll give you extra credit if you go to it also, like any of these extra events. All right, so let's go to 129S. Here we are, and I'm going to talk about authentication today, the authentication chapter, and I've added demos of JSON web tokens. Well, talk about that, and also a demo of SAML to show this, so it should be fun. All right, so here's the chapter. We'll start with this, and then I got some extra demos at the end. UCs are cutting back enrollments. Oh, I heard about that because they had to in Berkeley because the locals didn't like all the traffic. So they said you have to let in fewer students. Yeah, you might think that might send some of them to the city college. I don't know. Anyway, so you have to authenticate your users somehow, which means they have to somehow prove that they are somebody. Usually they do that with name and password. Now, you send a form, you send up a name and password. You might have multi-factor, like a physical token or an app on your phone. You could have SSL certificates. There's basic and digest authentication are old techniques. And, yeah. All right. Anyway, the most common, cheapest, and simplest technique is just have a name and password. It's also the least secure, but it's the baseline where everyone starts. All right. So more secure methods are, of course, two-factor. Everybody is increasingly loudly proclaiming that we should all just be using two-factor. Many companies are moving to it. Then you have an RSA token or an app on your phone or less securely an SMS message or something. So you have a password plus something else. So if somebody steals your password, which happens so often, they still can't get in. Then there are cryptographic authentications where you use something much more secure than a password, like a client-side SSL certificate, or a smart card, or a SAML or JSON web token, which I'll demonstrate at the end of this slides. All right, so HTTP authentication. There are some methods that have been around for decades, since early days of the web, intending to authenticate you over the web. Basic authentication, just base64 encodes your data. Digest MD5 encodes your password. Both of those are pretty insecure. Windows Integrated is not generally used on the web, but only inside Windows domains to automatically send authentication to a Windows server so it knows who you are. All right. And then there's third-party authentication services. These have come and gone many times. Microsoft was going to give Microsoft Passport and Windows Hello, so you would log into Microsoft and then use that as your authentication to go everywhere else. Obama said when he was president that everybody has too many passwords to remember, so we're going to give you a U.S. government password, and you'll use that as your only password, and the U.S. government will then log you into everything. And everybody was just stunned when he said that. Are you out of your mind? Not only do we not want to hand everything to the government, we don't trust the government to be very secure. There's no way in the world I would want the U.S. government to be the password repository for things like my bank and my email. and that he just sort of pretended he never said that and it dropped. Obama did that quite a few times. Stated something. Yeah, he also brought up a kill switch. I kind of liked Obama, but he did tend to just come up with dumb ideas and blurt them out without, having anybody around him to tell him, are you going to be sorry you said that? Anyway, yeah, take care of like our social security numbers. Exactly. Everybody said, are you out of your mind? And that never happened. But what did happen, which is probably a lot better, is now Facebook is the authentication provider for the whole internet. Every site you go to has login with Facebook, sometimes login in with LinkedIn, login with Google. So I don't know if you want to call that any better. Now we're all using Facebook, which I would say is probably even worse than the U.S. government from standpoint of being trustworthy and secure. But it's pretty much the universal provider for everybody. And the way it works, Facebook login is very convenient. So what this means is instead of making people make an account and choose a different password for my website, I just let them log in with Facebook, and then the password goes to Facebook, not me, and Facebook sends me a cryptographic token, which gives me access to a limited amount of the Facebook data, like, say, your name and address. And then I can authenticate who you are, and I have some information about you, but I don't have to store the passwords, you don't have to make another account, and everything else. So it's certainly, from a viewpoint of somebody putting up like a game or a social network or something, it would be certainly much better to just let Facebook handle all the login and password resets and all that stuff, as long as you don't mind being dependent on Facebook. Of course, if Facebook was ever to change their rules or cancel your account or something, your company would be dead. So, and there was just a blog, I didn't get to it in the news, but there was a guy publishing how he made a company, a huge company, with a small, medium-sized company with a bunch of employees and a lot of money, but it was all dependent on Facebook. And when Facebook changed their algorithm, the company was just dead. A lot of people do this too. They build a whole business on YouTube, and when YouTube blocks them, they're dead. So, that's another consideration before you would tie yourself into Facebook login. Yeah, login in the metaverse, yeah. Yep. Do I use any kind of Facebook SSO? Sure, all the time. I don't use Facebook, but I use Google. For example, Kahoot wants me to log in. I log in with Google. When I get the option, I'll log in with Google, rather than make another account on some website, but not Facebook, because I never use Facebook. Yeah, there's Facebook data dump. Yes. Oh, there was a Facebook hack that hacked everything about 8 years ago. The master password for the whole database was the word happiness. They got sued over that. That was like such a rotten password that was like not up to industry standards. Anyway, so there's design flaws. If you let people choose passwords, they'll often choose very foolish passwords that are easy to guess, like blank or equal to the username. So if you want to check your rules, see if there's rules, try to register accounts with weak passwords, see if you can change your password to weak passwords. A lot of websites don't really enforce rules very well. And then there's the brute force attack is typically what you do. You start with a list of known passwords, of which there are a ton of them, and then you just try all these websites. So the best defense against this is to just lock you out after too many failed login attempts. If you have, say, 5 or 10 failed login attempts in 10 minutes or something, then lock that account out for a while. That will slow down the brute force attack quite a lot. And we'll be doing it later. Burp Intruder does this. It will just try a whole bunch of passwords, and then it will record the status and the length of the response. And all the ones that are wrong will have some kind of page saying incorrect password, and the one that is right will have a different response with a different length and sometimes a different status. So you can just try a long list of passwords and tell which one worked pretty easily, if they don't have any brute force protection. Now, what they should have done is lock you out after trying a few of these, so all the rest will just be getting 404s, but this website apparently didn't do that. So, sometimes the attempt counters are really weak, like there's a cookie doing the attempt counters, so you can just change that cookie. BYP47 backdoor. I saw something about that, but I forget the details. Yeah. Anyway, and so you have failed login counter held stored on the client side. All right. And sometimes, even after your account is locked out, the page will still have some measurable difference if the password is correct or not. So here's a verbose failure message. Like sometimes it'll tell you password is incorrect or user is not correct for these two things. And that means you can just try usernames with the wrong password until you get the user. If you have, say, 1,000 possible usernames and 1,000 possible passwords, if you had to guess them both, you'd have to guess 1,000,000 times. But here you could do the usernames separately and then the password, so it makes it much, much easier. So this is a very poor procedure. You should not tell them what part of this was wrong. You should just tell them login rejected without saying whether it's the username or the password. All right, and here was a famous case related to the one that we've got sued for. You could go to AT&T, enter your contact email address, and then there'd be a management form which would fill in the phone number for you. So if you just got a list of email addresses, you could find people's phone numbers. And this is the kind of mistake people make pretty often. I found a mistake like this on a Comcast website a few years ago. There's a lot of mistakes like this. And so you can write a script that will try a whole list of email addresses and collect all the phone numbers. And we've had a similar attack that got all the IMEI numbers for Apple iPad owners, which was led to a huge lawsuit, but it was a huge embarrassment for AT&T. Well, what it is you sign into, you enter your email address, and then they take you to a form. You have to log in with your phone number, and it fills in the phone number for you to be helpful. It's really not all that different than this one here that just tries to helpfully tell you which part was wrong, the username or the password. Just saving you time by filling in the thing. This tends to happen when the programmers are not really aware of the privacy or security consequences of what they do. Yeah. Anyway, it's actually this. It's increased usability and convenience at the expense of security, and that is very common. Anyway, all right. So if you find usernames, that's username enumeration, and that's not as bad as finding a password, but you can usually use it to then send a phishing email to people and refer to them by their real username to make it seem like you're legitimately really from that company, and then try to trick you into clicking on a link where they can steal more information. Another thing that happens is they're just kind of sloppy when they write the page. So if you have a bad username, it prints an error page, and if you have a bad password, it uses different code to make the error page, which is somewhat different. So it might be just a few spaces or something different in the page, but Burp has the ability to compare two pages and highlight all the differences, so you can look for subtle differences easily. All right, let's try some Cahoots. Here they are. This is 6A. Make sure that the settings are good, and they are. Okay, good. All right, maybe we got everybody. All right. All right, the most common form of authentication. All right, yep, name and password. We all know that, I think. But we use everywhere. All right, what did Obama propose? They wanted to get the U.S. government into an authentication service. So what defense will protect you from brute force attacks? That's your best defense, something that locks you out after too many failed logins. All right, and what's the side channel that will allow user enumeration even when error pages are identical? Timing is the one. You may remember this from SQL injection. It might take a different amount of time to notice a bad password than to notice a bad username. It's pretty easy to write code that has that feature. So a burp comparer will find differences in the pages if they exist, but in this case the pages are identical, so burp comparer will not find anything. But timing could still be a side channel. So we got TV. I think I might know from 4 who that is. I'm not sure. DDD, I certainly don't know who that is. And I know who that is. All right. Well, I'm going to take the 10-minute break early. I need to go do something. So I'll pick up at 6:40. I'm going to stop this recording.